We have really good news for everyone this morning. The Republicans and Democrats have gotten together and finally worked out a deal on a coronavirus stimulus package. It'll be about $900 billion, and you will get about $600 in spending cash to grease the wheels a little bit for the American people, make the machine churn. You'll be able to pay your rent, go out, maybe buy stuff. It's wonderful. It's wonderful. It's wonderful. Now, of course, it's your money. I mean, the $900 billion. Where do you think the government gets their money from? It's your labor, the taxes you've paid, and the government just basically money printer go burr, as it were. So you will be losing about $2,700 in taxes, but you'll get back $600. Congratulations. And that leaves the remaining, $2,100 or so dollars to go to, big businesses and major corporations. But that's just the way it's got to be. It's for our own good. It's a good cause. The coronavirus pandemic is a very serious problem that everybody, everywhere, takes seriously. And no one at any point should ever challenge what the elites tell us when Dr. Birx herself is slammed for hypocrisy for going to a family vacation with 3 generations of her households. Yeah, blah, blah, blah. You get it. The stimulus package is a joke. Look, early on, I was very much in favor of a stimulus doing something to help make sure these businesses can keep functioning because we had to lock everything down. And, the videos we saw coming out of China and the videos early on, and even in this country, they were shocking and scary. And I think we had a very serious crisis with COVID early on as a novel virus, and a lot of people died. Since then, we've realized the lockdowns do not work. I mean, the fact that we're in another fiasco like this shows, in my opinion, the lockdowns just, they didn't cut it, okay? We locked down to the best of our abilities. We've all been wearing masks and socially distancing, but here we go again. COVID's back. Of course, the bigger question is, while we can talk about the efficacy of lockdowns and why we continue doing it, why the first stimulus made sense, again, because I think we were like, okay, we have to do this. It's going to be bad. We knew there were going to be provisions for big corporations. Now they're doing it again and again and again, and they're just continually extracting things. The big question we have to ask ourselves is, if we think lockdowns don't work, and there may be another way to solve this problem, why is it that these elites, these Democrats, these medical professionals aren't scared at all? Oh, they've got you scared, and the media's got you all scared. And there are people who walk down the streets screaming, "Wear your mask!" Wah! Terrified. I've seen stories and videos of people like walking down the street and like jumping away from people, terrified. If Dr. Birx herself from the coronavirus task force does not care, why should anyone else? That's the big problem. When we see Gavin Newsom, I can just call him a moron. He goes out to eat and he gets his fancy breakfast or dinner or whatever. Just call him a moron. When Nancy Pelosi and Lori Lightfoot and Gretchen Whitmer got to get their hair did, I just think they're dumb and they're authoritarians. But there's something to be said about all of these people who in no way fear anything that's going on. So the question remains, maybe at some point, or I should say, when will people start to realize the elites don't fear COVID, are exempt from the lockdowns, and are perpetrating the largest transfer of wealth in human history? And this is a tweet I put out in response to Carol Roth, who tweeted, just to be clear, this is essential, but small businesses and their employees throughout NYC are not. And it is Saturday Night Live with, it looks like Kristen Wiig and Kate McKinnon. I don't know who these people are. I think that's Kristen Wiig. And I don't know her name. Whatever. Saturday Night Live cast members hugging and laughing on the TV, clearly not scared at all. Why are you scared? Why is anyone scared? We have to, our leaders are giving us an example of what they're actually concerned about. So we can say two things. They're lying to us or they're morons. Either way, I think we're facing a pretty serious problem. Now, listen, I don't need to get into all of the deep details of Dr. Birx herself partying with her family and her kids and 3 generations. Clearly, in no way does she care about COVID. Wonderful. Thanks for setting an example, Dr. Birx. You've been great. And look, this is Donald Trump's coronavirus task force. Dr. Fauci was caught at a ball game sitting next to people with no mask on. These people don't care. So what is it? Is COVID a very serious threat? Or are these people magically immune? Or are they all just really, really dumb? You know, I have to say, maybe a little bit from column A, maybe a little bit from column B. They're dumb and they don't care. Or I should say, well, I don't know how to put it. I think COVID is a real problem. But I think these people are in a position where they're the ultra elites and they just don't have to think about it. The lockdowns don't pertain to them. I don't think that COVID, based on what I'm seeing from them, is this like widespread airborne Ebola that's, you know, causing all this harm. I think it's what I should say is, to clarify that, I don't think that it's like zombie movie-esque worst pandemic ever. I think it's bad. I do think to a certain degree lockdowns worked. And I think one of the big reasons they keep pushing these lockdowns is it's really simple. They want to be safe for themselves and they don't care about you. So put it this way. If there was no lockdown and the COVID numbers were way, way higher, well, these people who are older would be freaking out because they don't know who's in contact with what. By locking everything down, they reduce the chance that there's going to be exposure for them. And then go around and do whatever they want, do their little happy hugging on TV while you get your wealth extracted, your business is destroyed, and they don't care. They're rich. Not all of them, but most of them. You look, if you're wealthy, and maybe there's some wealthy individuals watching, you know that you can sit back, put your feet up, and you don't got to worry about anything. You can take care of yourself and prepare for what you need to prepare for. And now, for all the working class people watching your business is destroyed and your savings is collapsed, you've got nothing. We've got people facing eviction. So what do? They give us this bill right here. The $900 billion coronavirus relief deal Congress just brokered. From Just the News. They say the House and Senate could vote to approve the package as early as Monday, and President Trump is expected to sign it. More help is on the way, McConnell of Kentucky said when he announced the deal on the Senate floor. So here's what we're going to get. Individual stimulus checks. The bill offers up to $600 per person, including adults and children, for families making less than $99,000 annually. The payments begin decreasing for those above $75,000 in annual income. The bill includes more than $284 billion for more forgivable Paycheck Protection Program loans. The bill expands eligibility for nonprofit organizations and news outlets and lets churches and faith-based organizations qualify. Unemployment benefits of up to $300 per week will be extended at least through March 14th. They'll provide tax relief. Businesses that receive PPP loans and had them forgiven will be allowed to deduct the costs covered by those loans on their federal taxes. The bill will also provide a White House-backed tax break for corporate meal expenses, COVID vaccine assistance, entertainment industry aid. That's exactly what we needed. I saw those people on Saturday Night Live hugging, and I said, oh, those poor millionaires. What can we do to help them? They must be crying their eyes and wiping it with $100 bills. I'm so sad. Can we please pool all of our tax resources to help them? The legislation will provide $15 billion for independent movie theaters and cultural institutions. Okay, I'll tone it down a little bit. I do think those are still businesses that are needing of support, I suppose. But what? These movie theaters are just going to get this check and then what? We're going to expect movies to come back at some point? Don't spare me. Eviction moratorium, I think, is good, but this doesn't actually solve any problems. I'll put it this way. You've got a buildup of. I'll give you a personal example. Okay, we had our water softener break, and then all those little beads get jammed up in the pipes, and so they don't stop coming. Okay, you can turn the water off, you can change the filter, and say this will hold back the flow of this sediment for some time. Then the sediment keeps building up. What I'm trying to say is, you can say we are not going to evict people. But all you're doing is putting your finger over, a pressurized chamber, and the pressure is building and building and building. What happens when the eviction moratorium is up and people owe $6,000 in back rent or mortgage payments? Then it's like, well, the eviction moratorium's over right about now and you're evicted. or here's your notice. Or they could probably still argue, I gave them notice of eviction the moment the moratorium was up. It doesn't solve any of the problems. So I have to question why it is that they're so nonchalant about everything that's happening. They don't care. Rent assistance, $25 billion in emergency assistance to renters. Education funding. There's $82 billion set aside for colleges. Oh, colleges. And schools to fund AC and heating and repair and retrofit and reduce coronavirus risks, blah, blah, blah. Child care aid. Here's what needs to happen. Republicans need to start arguing and negotiating on right-wing terms, I guess. I don't know if right-wing is the right word, but counter to what the Democrats have done. Because let me break down for you exactly what's going on right now. My friends, Democrats in many different cities and states have destroyed the economy, shut it down, and it's clearly not solving the problem. Okay, so what do we do? At this point, after seeing all of this throughout the year, perhaps we reopen, protect the vulnerable, and I'm not the only one who's advocated for this. So I ask, as Republicans do nothing and come to the negotiating table and say, okay, Democrats, what is it that you want? We want $1,200 for people. Republicans go $600. That's not negotiating. Negotiating would be Republicans saying, oh, you want $1,200? Well, here's what we want. We want a bill mandating the reopening of the economy nationwide with special protections for the vulnerable and the elderly to get vaccines to those who need it most, but to get young people back to work, schools to reopen, and business to restart. How about that? And then the Democrats would have to counter. No, but we don't want any of that. Well, too bad. Too bad. That would be actual negotiating. Republicans don't do that. They don't. And see, that's the issue. People often say, Tim only rags on Democrats. That means he's right wing. No. Hold on. That's partly true, but it misses some important context. When Democrats are like, we want to burn the whole house down. And I'm like, that's a terrible idea. And Republicans go, maybe we should only burn down the kitchen. I'm like, okay, you shut up. You're nuts. I can tell the Republicans to shut up because these politicians aren't actually negotiating anything. Or I could look at those who are actually setting fire to the place. Tell me, what have Republicans done? Seriously, good or bad? They block a lot of bills. Oh, okay. They're just sitting there being like, nah, I don't know, nah. Not doing anything, not negotiating for things conservatives or Trump supporters or Republicans actually want, not actually countering these negotiations. The problem we are facing right now is an economic problem caused by Democrat politicians, governors, etc. And it's so bad that over in California, they're actually trying to recall Gavin Newsom. 844,000 signatures so far. They're about, I believe, half the way there to trigger a special election and remove the guy. I look forward to it. I think it's something that needs to happen. Because I tell you this, I don't know. Look, we need to send a message to politicians who get nothing done. We need to make sure they know that if they aren't doing anything, we're watching and we're going to say no to them. For too long, people have gone into the voting booth and said R or D, Republican or Democrat, and that's it. That's ridiculous. Nobody knows what they're voting for other than party, and the parties don't care. Democrats have an activist base. The activist base makes demands. So the Democrats say, all right, they want us to burn the house down, so we're going to burn it down. And then the Republicans go, just a living room? Yeah. Where's the activist base on the right to say, here's what we demand of our politicians? I suppose the left started this when they went, full activist, as it were. And then the Democrats started playing into the activist base. The only counter, I suppose, would be conservatives doing the same thing. And that leads to conflict because then you're going to have a hard disconnect in policy. Then you're going to have Republican politicians passing bills or proposing legislation that would force the economy to reopen. Democrats are going to start crying and shaking, going, but COVID, I'm so scared. Pew Research shows it. I'm sorry, it's true. Something like only 4 or 5% of Democrats feel comfortable to go back to work. So Republicans and conservatives are going to say, get everyone back to work. And we're going to say, and the Democrats are going to say, that makes no sense. Why would I do that? To COVID. And so the left is going to say, shut everything down. The right's going to say, that makes no sense. You can't function with no economy, with no transactions, no food. Clearly, we're at an impasse. The good news is Republicans don't actually fight for anything. So in the end, there won't be a conflict between the establishment political parties. The Democrats can scream, burn it down. The Republicans will be like just a little bit, as I've said. But maybe if more Trump supporters start making demands, as the Republican Party becomes more of the party of Donald Trump, then we're going to start seeing the inverse. We're going to start seeing things like universal gun ownership laws, things like that. Now, my friends, I love this tweet here from Spike Cohen. He says 600 times 328 million is 196.8 billion. This bill is for 900 billion. Guess who's getting that other 700 billion? Hint, it rhymes with crony schmorperations. Oh, and guess who's going to pay for it? Hint, it rhymes with you, your schmildren, and your grandschmildren. Yes, that's who's going to pay for it. It's debt. It's inflation. It extracts the value of your labor. They found a very clever workaround for everything. How do you buy things and borrow from the American people without actually taking money out of their pocket? Inflation. What you're seeing on the screen is Fred economic data from the St. Louis Federal Reserve Bank, economic research. And as you can see, take a look at this very beautiful, beautiful, massive spike. They say 35% of all U.S. dollars in circulation were printed in the last 10 months. Amazing. Do you know what happens when you mass print currency? Well, look, I'm not an economist, all right? But I can tell you they're extracting your labor, your value. When you work for that hour, they say, I love this. I love this the most. The left says increase the minimum wage. Here's how they do it. They inflate the currency so it's worthless and then offer to pay you twice of what was now worth half. Get it? If $10 an hour can't buy, can only buy, if let's say this, if right now $10 an hour gets you 2 gallons of milk, and then they inflate the currency, so now $10 an hour only gets you 1 gallon of milk. Then they go, but don't worry, we're raising the minimum wage to $15. Congratulations. Now you can buy 1.5 gallons per hour. You have lost economic control. You have lost economic access. That's the problem with inflation. Now, there are some arguments I'm seeing from the left where they say things like, this won't cause inflation because there's, no GDP growth or whatever nonsense. They say that there can only be inflation if there's a rapid exchanging of goods, and right now there isn't, so there's no real value to the money. It wouldn't inflate. In fact, some are arguing it could deflate, but I'm not sure I agree with that. The argument for deflation is that the U.S. dollar, people have very little of them, and so they're becoming very, very. They have nothing to like. They have to be very careful about what they spend it on. So what happens is the rich get a massive amount of money that theoretically can buy them more, and maybe this makes sense. Think about it this way. If you normally charge $100 an hour because you got a specialty job, you're the best, 3D printing, manufacturing, whatever. You're good at what you do. All right. You charge $100 an hour. But now nobody's working and you're desperate. And so you're reaching out to everybody saying, dude, I'll do it just $50 an hour. I'm not paying $50. I don't have a job right now. And you're freaking out. So you depress your own wages. You then find some very rich individual who says, I'll tell you what. $50 an hour and you will build me a new home. Something ridiculous. But you're desperate for work, so you take it. Now that $50 can actually buy way more because the economy has been destroyed. And although it can buy them way more, what you can get for that money as a working class individual is way less. You're not going to have access to goods and services. So you're ultimately going to be sitting on a lot of money that you can only use for food and rent and things like that. The rich people, however, will have 10 times as much money. They're totally fine sitting around. They've been investing in big corporations that have been growing in value. And that's it. They'll continue to extract the value and the wealth of the working class. And we'll sit back and they've got the left screaming and cheering for it. This is the inverse of a minimum wage increase. Rapid inflation or destroying of the economy makes people desperate, makes their wages go down. Maybe they're hoping that the rich will be able to control more of the economy and the poor people will be satiated because after all this is said and done, they'll throw you a bone and you'll say, oh, thank you. You destroyed the economy, but you gave me $600. Thank you. I love it. I love seeing memes from the left where they say things like, working 40 hours a week is not an accomplishment. How could you wake up every day and be excited to have worked 40 hours a week or something like that? And I'm like, man, how crazy is it that there are people in this country that hate work? Work is fun. Work is productivity. It's like building something, accomplishing something. What people don't understand about work is like anything you might do for fun. Playing a video game, right? You play a video game and then you beat a level. That's work. There's no difference. The problem is what you prioritize. If you get your satisfaction and fulfillment from things that are of no value, that's the problem. So what happens is people end up getting jobs they absolutely detest and then thinking the concept of work itself is bad, and it's not. I think these lockdowns are going to go on for quite some time, but I think people are going to snap because of it. The Democrats, the progressive Democrats, they want universal health care. They want Medicare for all. Well, they're not going to get it from the Democratic Party. And the right wants a return to normalcy, I guess, and the economies to reopen. And you're not going to get that from the Republican Party. Our political class is worthless. The Republicans don't negotiate on behalf of what Republicans and Trump supporters want at all. They do nothing but say the Democrats are bad and we're going to hold them back a little bit. And you're like, I guess I'll take what I can get because the Democrats are nuts. And then the Democrats are nuts, and the progressive Democrats, many of whom I think are nuts, I don't agree with them, but a lot of them are like, how does any of this make sense? There's an actual faction of leftists who are not ultra woke, and they call the woke corporate Democrats the neoliberals. And I think one thing we probably should make sure that we're getting right is that, you know, people like Jimmy Dore, he's a good dude. He's smart, and he's economic leftist, but he's populist, so he's talking about the exact same problems. He's just calling for a different solution. Maybe we disagree on that. But if we all agree on the absurdity of the ultra woke garbage corporate nonsense and the political establishment being trash, then maybe we can start from there. But I'll leave it there. Stick around. Next segment's coming up at 1 p.m. on this channel. Thanks for hanging out, and I will see you all then.